Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Sundo. Thank you so much for watching today's math video. Let's go ahead and let's get started. Today I will have a good learning attitude, be an active learner and grow my brain, and of course be a mindful problem solver. We are going to work on the following mathematical practices this week. Number 1, I can solve problems without giving up. And number 5, I can use math tools and tell why I chose them. Of course, always sticking with the fourth side by keeping in our growth mindset for math class. The SOLs that will be covered in class this week and in today's video are SOL 5.8, C, D, and E. We have 3 objectives. 1 is we will identify equivalent measurements within the metric system. 2, we will estimate and then measure to solve problems using U.S. customary and metric units. 3, we will choose an appropriate unit of measure for a situation involving measurement using U.S. customary and metric units. So here are our 3 separate objectives listed out: our metric system, our U.S. customary and metric units, and choose an appropriate unit of measure. So there's the breakdown. All right, this will be on the calculator portion of your 5th grade math SOL. First, let's dive into the metric system using King Hector doesn't usually drink chocolate milk. Here's a look at the metric system, and you can see all of the different units listed on our chart. We can use this saying, King Hector doesn't usually drink chocolate milk, just to remember the order of all of the units on our chart. So King, or K, stands for kilo. Hector begins with H, so it stands for hecto. Doesn't begins with D, which stands for deca. Usually begins with U, and that stands for the unit part, the basic unit. Drink starts with D, which stands for deci. Chocolate starts with C, which stands for centi. And milk starts with M, which stands for milli. Now let's go back to take a look at this middle part of the chart. That says the basic unit. That is going to show you which unit you are in. So are we using meters? Are we using liters? Or are we using grams? Okay, and as you move to the left of your chart, you'll notice the units are in kilo, hecto, or deca. So it could be kilometers, kiloliters, or kilograms, hectometers, hectoliters, or hectograms, decameters, decaliters, or decagrams. And then it works the same way on the right-hand side of the chart. So we could have decimeter, deciliter, decigrams, centimeter, centiliter, centigrams, and millimeter, milliliter, and milligrams. The really nice thing about this chart is if you can remember the order of the chart, it makes the metric system super easy to use because you can look at this chart and easily convert the different units. And I'm going to show you an example of how to do that on this page. Okay, so here is our chart. We have King Hector doesn't usually drink chocolate milk. Okay, so you could write that out with that saying. That saying's super easy to remember, and you could use the beginning letters to write each of these units down. Okay? Now, our worksheet says to convert the following. So number 1 says to convert 56.3 centimeters into millimeters. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my chart to locate centimeters. Well, I can see that centimeters are located right there, so that's where I'm starting. I know that I need to move to millimeters because that's what it's asking me to convert to. So next I'm going to find millimeters. Now, the metric system has prefix modifiers that are powers of 10. So that's why you'll see as we move up the chart, they are multiplying. And as we move down the chart, they are dividing. That's what we're actually doing when we're moving up and down this chart with those powers of 10. Okay, this way is kind of a shortcut, and you can do this shortcut just by using this chart. Okay, so let's try converting the centimeter to the millimeter just by using the chart. We go from the centimeter to the millimeter by moving one space to the right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a jump one space to the right. I'm also going to do the same thing with my decimal. Okay, so here's my decimal. I'm going to move it 1 space to the right. And now I can get ready to write my new measurement, which is 563 millimeters. 563 millimeters is the correct answer for number 1. Let's take a look at number 2. We have 356.8 milliliters. Let's do the same thing with our chart. We start with milliliters this time, and we want to move to liters. Now remember, liters is your base unit or your basic unit. So that's located in the middle of your chart. So this time it looks like we're moving 1, 2, 3 spaces to the left. So 1, 2, 3 jumps to the left here. I'm going to come down to my decimal and do the same. 1, 2, 3 spaces to the left here. So now my new answer becomes, here we go, we have our decimal, 3, 5, 6, 8 liters. Okay, so we've moved our decimal and we have our correct answer. Number 3, 673.1 grams. So we need to start for grams next. So I'm going to locate grams, and it's just going to be right where my base unit is again. So I'm going to stay right here with my grams, and then I need to move to kilograms. So kilograms are located all the way to the left of my chart, which means that I am going to be taking 1, 2, 3 jumps to the left. So let's do the same with our decimal. 1, 2, 3. And our new number now becomes 0.6731 kilograms. Okay, so that's our answer for number 3. Number 4. All right, so we want to go from meters to centimeters. So we're still going to stay here with our base unit of meters. And then we need to move to centimeters, which is right here on our chart. So let's get ready to see how many jumps we have to do. We're moving 1, 2 jumps to go from meters to centimeters. So let's get ready to move our decimal 1, 2 places. So now our new number is going to become 67.3 centimeters. And that's the shortcut that you can use when converting your different units using the metric system and our super special chart. King Hector doesn't usually drink chocolate milk. We're also going to talk this week about U.S. customary and metric units. Okay, this is a chart that gives you a shortcut of your U.S. customary units. There are 12 inches in 1 foot, 3 feet in 1 yard, 36 inches in 1 yard, and 5,280 feet in 1 mile. It's a good idea to commit this chart to memory. Let's take a look at a few different things that we would use these units to measure. For millimeters, we're going to use that to measure something really, really small, just like the width of your thumb, because that is super tiny. Okay, so we would use millimeters to measure something like the width of your thumb, or something really, really tiny. For feet, we would use that to measure anything bigger than 12 inches or longer than 12 inches. Okay, so anything longer than your standard 12-inch ruler, we're going to use feet to measure that. We're going to use yards or meters to measure things that are either several feet longer or something a lot bigger than what we would be able to measure using our ruler. So something like a football field would be good for yards or meters. So if you're ever watching a football game, you'll see that they always talk about it by yards. Okay? Last but not least, we use miles or kilometers to measure things that are really long, like the distance between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, or wherever you're trying to go. You're probably going to measure that using miles or kilometers. Okay, so that is how we would use length for our U.S. customary and metric. Let's take a look at weight. Okay, and here's your chart. Again, it's a good idea to commit this to memory. There are 16 ounces in 1 pound, 2,000 pounds in 1 ton, 1,000 milligrams in 1 gram, and 1,000 grams in 1 kilogram. Now, I would like to point out the nice thing about your metric system is you do not have to commit those conversions to memory because we used our super special saying about King Hector. Now, the weight for our U.S. customary, it's a little bit different. We have to memorize it. or we have a couple of different tricks that we can use to memorize that one, okay? So milligrams we use to weigh something that is really, really light, such as a feather. Grams we would use to measure something a little bit heavier, but it still weighs less than 1 kilogram. So such as like a calculator, that would be something that would be measured in grams. We could use ounces to measure something that weighs less than 1 pound. So something like a sandwich or maybe like one of those little juice cups. We would use those for ounces to measure those. We would use pounds and kilograms to measure a lot of things. So that's a really popular unit of measurement. So something like a person, a chair, a pair of cowboy boots. And then our big one is we would use tons to measure something that's really, really huge, like an elephant. Okay, so those are the different measurements that we would choose to measure those types of things. We also measure using capacity. Okay, and you can either again commit this to memory, or you might use something like the gallon man, which I will show you a conversion for on the next page. Okay, so there are 2 cups in 1 pint, there are 2 pints in 1 quart, and 4 quarts in 1 gallon. Okay, and our metric, which remember we don't have to memorize due to our handy dandy chart, there are 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. Okay. We would use milliliters to measure something really, really small. So if you've ever, maybe you have little brothers or little sisters or little cousins that maybe needed Tylenol or something, you would use something like this, a little medicine dropper measured in millimeters, to measure how much medicine they would take because they need a really small, precise amount of medicine. So that's something you would use millimeters for. You would use gallons, obviously, to measure something much bigger, like how much liquid is in your swimming pool. Okay, so that's what we would use those different types of measurements for. Okay, now as I mentioned, there are some shortcuts and tricks to remember the customary units of capacity. You might see the gallon man, which you can cut out and make to help you remember some of these measurements. You can also use this chart here, so you can see the gallon at the top, and then separated into 4 quarts because there are 4 quarts in a gallon. Okay, and then there are 2 pints in 1 quart, and then there are 4 cups. I'm sorry, there are two cups in 1 pint. Okay, so we have our gallon, our quart, our pints, and our cups at the bottom. Now, the neat thing about this is you can see how many cups are in a gallon because you can count out all of the cups. You can see how many pints are in a gallon by counting up all the pints. You can see how many quarts are in a gallon by counting up all of the quarts. So for example, we can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4 quarts in 1 gallon. We can also see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pints in 1 gallon. We can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 cups in 1 gallon. So that's how you would use that chart, or if you chose to make your gallon man. And that's a really nice strategy to use to remember your conversions for your customary units of capacity. That's the last chart that I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching today's math video, everyone. Have a great day.